We are the tide from the north, we're brave and we're bold. Defeating our rivals never gets old. Making our way to the Big Sky Conference. Watch out, 'cause here comes the silver and gold. Whoa, whoa. This is Tubbs at the club for the Vandals of Idaho.
Tribe of the North, brave and bold, to the official, unofficial podcast of your Idaho Vandals and the Vandals affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, and also this week your substitute grade F producer, Brian Marceau. And I'm going to be joined today. It's a two-man panel, first time ever. Brian and Boatman, B squared. Best of all time, Alex Boatman. How's it going?
It's going well, Brian. I feel lazy over here. You're out here tweeting everything out. You're running the show from behind. You're hosting. I just provide the content, I guess. That's all I'm good for these days. But, Brian, I know why you're here. You're here for one reason only. It's not to talk to Vandals. It's to talk about my Mountaineers, all right? We already covered their game on Saturday, post-game, because you heard that update. But they don't have a game this week, Brian. I know you're upset. Who are you going to watch Saturday before the Vandals, right? I don't know what you're going to do. But don't fret. Don't fret. Basketball season is upon us, and we are a basketball school. Let's be real. We have Coach Huggins. That's all that matters here anymore.
And you're going to have the inside scoop on West Virginia basketball, top recruits, how they're faring in the. I'm an idiot right now. They're still in the ACC.
We're in the Big 12.
Big 12,
we were 3 seed last year. Zach Kloss has 1 win last year. Bob Huggins, meanwhile, has over 900 career wins. So you could say they're comparable.
Yeah, pretty close. I mean, a factor of 300, not a big deal.
No.
I'm not a math major, but a factor of 300 sounds like a minor deal. And you listeners might be wondering, okay, how many more minutes are we going to go on West Virginia football and basketball? Many more. That's what we're here for. But when we're done talking West Virginia sports, which again is never, we're here for. It's weird to say this, Alex. This is the third time in 2021 Idaho is going to play Eastern Washington. Second time we're playing them in Cheney. Right now, the number 2 Eastern Washington Eagles. We're really not going to spend time talking about Portland State, guys. We recorded an entire reaction show live.
All 4 of us. Yeah.
Live from the Boatman's RV, and no, they don't rent, they buy. Which, just side note, I have to address this. It's just because I've never been in a family that owned an RV. It didn't occur to me that every single person I've ever met who has an RV bought it. No one rents it except the people you see in the summer with those ones where you can see there's advertisements on the back.
Tour America.
Yeah, exactly.
800 number on the back.
Yeah. When I see those, I had some family members once say, hey, wouldn't it be great for us to all take a trip in one of those in the summer? And my first thought was thank God this person's never going to organize this so I can say yes and not mean it. But you guys' situation would be fantastic. Looked like you guys had a good time.
They've owned that. They've been doing that, Brian, for almost 10 years. This is their second RV they're on, and they only use it probably 6-7 times a year, and 5 or 6 of those times for Vandal football. So you can see where my parents' loyalty lies. Dad threw 50 burgers on the grill on Saturday, so that was a light day for him.
Man, and I need to get there for a Boatman burger.
Yeah,
we're going to talk
down there
in a second. I promise.
Head down there, Montana, whenever. Even though I'm not there, Chris and Dallas know the way, so they'll stop by for sure.
So here's my problem, and listeners are going to be wondering, you guys are going to talk about the football game someday, and someday.
No.
Someday we'll get there. But you guys were all live. I was the one person who stayed. I live in Coeur d'Alene. I stayed in Coeur d'Alene. Just full disclosure, guys. I took my daughter to the Simon Fraser game. She's 3 months old. She did great. Had a good time. It's just homecoming. I was concerned that I don't know if the environment might be different. If it might there might be just some difficulties where we got to park further away. All that kind of stuff. So I just sat at home. Ordered a gigantic amount of takeout, and then was terrified I was going to turn myself into a fat ass, which will happen someday. But no, we're going to get there at some point. I can't go to the Montana game either because I've got relatives getting married in Denver.
Whenever you're down, there's multiple other ones, I guess actually only 3 after Montana.
I half need to hope that the airline strikes take place so I can't go to Denver for the wedding, so I have no choice but to go to the football game. But no, I've got stuff going. My relatives live in Missoula, and they picked this weekend to get married in Denver.
What the? I'm not going to go there, but I guess
yes, you can go there. Please go there.
To lead into this game, you live in Coeur d'Alene. We play in Cheney. Are you making the trek over to Cheney this weekend?
And then it's someday when I don't have a 3-month-old. When I don't have a 3 or 4-month-old, I'll do it. It's although
it's tough.
Can we talk about we'll talk about the first topic of this game, 11:30 a.m. kickoff.
TV, man, it's not fun. I've played real quick about your 3-month-old daughter. For all those of you who have not read the ESPN article that I was featured in, yes, I'm a famous ESPN guy now. I was 13 days old my first game in the Dome, so got your daughter beat there by a couple months. But 11:30 a.m. kick, Brian. I've been a part of a couple 11 a.m. kicks in my time at Idaho. They suck. They are not fun, mainly because it involves waking up as a player. You have to wake up at least 4 hours prior to kick, and because we're not staying the night up there, that means we will bus up there. We'll have to be there by 9:30, which means we'll leave the Dome by 8:45. They'll probably get a walkthrough in. They're going to have to probably be at the Dome by 7 a.m. on Saturday. That's an early day for your guys, for the Vandals to get up there to Cheney. That's the one quirk about playing close is you bust day of rather than staying there the night before. But I spoke about bus trips. This is our only bus trip of the year, Brian. We've actually flown to every game. We are flying to every game after that. So props to the athletic department for pulling that off. But this is our only bus trip of the year, confirmed.
I know you're right about all that, and you're East Coast time, so the 11:30 kickoff might be friendly for you. I gotta say, when I was looking up the outline, typing up the outline to preview this game, I saw 11:30, and my heart just sank. And double down on that, man. It's good news that it's the Root Sports Game of the Week because that is a different market. The Root does a great job with their production. I love the Root games, but we know that makes it an ESPN Plus blackout. So Vandals are going to have to find an option B to stream. Boatman, what would you recommend for an option B? Option A, get your ass to the game if you live around here. If you don't have a 3-month-old, you need to go. This is a close game. I know we haven't made fun of Chuck Staven in the transfer portal for quite some time because I think he's never going to leave the transfer portal. No. But this is one of the regional rivalries that, look, it's a number 2 team in the FCS. This is one of the types of games in the Big Sky we should be happy about. We should be excited it's taking place. Try to get to that game. But if you can't get to the game, Alex, you're not. Well, maybe you do fly back for cheap. But presuming you're not flying back and you're doing West Virginia related stuff, what are you going to do to stay updated on this game? First of all, I'm doing Pittsburgh-related things. I got Steelers tickets for Sunday versus Seahawks Sunday Night Football. So I'll be a little preoccupied Sunday, so can't fly back out. Root Sports. So find a cable, go to your local bar or whatever. Find Root Sports on. If you have to use ESPN Plus, download a VPN. Okay, you can go find a VPN for free. Put it on your computer. Change your location to somewhere not in the Northwest. This is legal. It happens all the time. Kind of legal. I mean, it's advertised to be able to do so. So that's option. Option C, Root Sports is available on 2 streaming platforms, on AT&T TV Now, or they call it Direct TV Now. You can probably sign up for like a free month or something like that. It's like $85 a month. Or it is brand new on Fubo TV, which I know does give you a free 7-day trial. Okay. So you're in the Northwest, download Fubo TV, get the free 7-day trial. Make sure you cancel prior. Make sure you get the Root Sports package. And who knows, maybe you just want to keep it because now we got Seattle Kraken on. We got, more Big Sky football on. I mean, it's getting time to see more sports on Root Sports. So Fubo TV, VPN for ESPN Plus, or just go to a restaurant bar, find Root Sports. Those are my suggestions. I'm glad we had this talk in public. Because I will definitely be getting a VPN. Yes. And I will definitely be making fun of the Big Sky Podcast Network chat group for people. I'm like I'm not the actual grandpa of the group, but like tech-wise, I sometimes feel like I'm the grandpa. And I will have figured this out before a couple people. So that's great news for me. But we're 10 minutes in. We should probably talk about the game at some point. Oh, that was a game. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Eastern Washington, this is... minus the FBS games, of course. This is an Eastern team that is, at the start of the season, we might not have thought this was toughest on our schedule, but Alex, Eastern looks pretty dang good so far.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I haven't been that surprised by them, I guess. I think I kind of actually expected this. I picked them over UNLV. The only game I haven't picked them right in all year is against Montana. And that was literally down to the last second. Montana on a backup quarterback. Crazy game. That was the only time I've mispicked Eastern. So I've pretty much had Eastern to this point right here. They're hot. They have shown some weaknesses, though. Letting Western Illinois crawl back in the game versus them. And Western Illinois is not a good football team. They would finish definitely in the bottom tier of the Big Sky Conference, probably below Chris's last Sacramento State that Chris seems to so hate. So I think that, this Eastern team is kind of where I expect him to be. They obviously have number 3 at quarterback, who's going to go down in Big Sky lore as one of the best Big Sky quarterbacks of all time. Somehow he is still here. Vandal fans, do not worry. This is the last time you'll have to see Eric Barrier on an opposing sideline. Like, God bless, Brian. God bless. But you said we've played these guys twice already this year. In our 4 games back versus these guys since we've been back to the Big Sky, every single game has been a one-score game except the first one in 2018. So, Vandal fans, I'm not saying that we're going to have a one-score game. That'll be later in predictions, but when we've been outmatched, right, we have somehow shown up versus Eastern. We match up well versus them somehow. It's in their guys' head. We match up well versus them. We get blown out, or we could just make a game out of this and actually surprise them. I'm not quite sure. Who knows what's going to happen?
I think we need to spend a few seconds talking about Eric Barrier.
Yeah.
To actually contextualize it, because this is I think this is an odd fact about Eric Barrier in the Big Sky, because he's been a starter. He took over when Gage Gubrud went down with the season-ending injury in 2018, and Eastern went to the championship that year with Barrier as their starter. He feels like he's been around forever, and minus his first game against Weber as a starter in 2018, he's just been unbelievably good forever, and I think it can almost get old. But Barrier is averaging 411 yards per game this season, 21 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 68.6 completion percentage, and those are not dink and dunks. He has probably the best arm in the entire league. He can beat you with his feet too, but what he really beats you with is his arm. And Alex, did you get to watch any of the Eastern Montana game a couple weeks ago?
Brief moments here or there. I switched them back and forth. I had the Vandals on my TV. I had the Mariners on. We're in the playoff hunt at the time, and then in between, I did have Eastern up for a little bit.
Okay, that was one of the first games in a while in the FCS where he's been able to show how much better he is than everyone, where he completes high degree of difficulty plays that other guys just can't do. Things like he's getting hit, and he's getting hit while he goes down and throws a 40-yard bomb to the only, and it's exactly where it needs to be, only where his receiver can get to it. That's in spite of pressure. And just further contextualize it right now, we're not trying to obsess about stats, because if you guys have watched him play, look, he passes the eye test. But he has the number 3 passer in the league in yards per game is Montana State's Mathew McKay at 224. Barrier is almost double his yardage output. And
yeah,
McKay's
it's insane. Great. It's insane. And Big Sky play, right? He's averaging 444 yards a game. Number 2 is at 301, and that's Northern Arizona. This is in conference play only, right? On the flip side, Idaho is second to last in yards given up in conference play through the air at 321. Granted, I think that has to deal with us being down versus Portland State, and that flips the game script. I mean, us being ahead a lot versus Portland State, right? And that flips the game script around, where they are going to be throwing the whole time and not running a whole lot, as we saw. Where I think Davis Alexander threw like 50-something passes, Brian, right? So I mean, sometimes stats don't tell the true picture of how games go, right? But yeah, Eric Barrier is a monster. It's insane. I'm happy this is the last time we got to see him. Just thank God. But like I said, for some reason, these Vandals, I don't know what it is, just seem to match up well versus Eastern these last 3 matchups, and I don't get why. It's like unexplainable to me. It's like I can't comprehend why.
So I can tell you why I think so. And I asked Daryn Best about it at Media Days. And before I tell you asterisk, Aaron Best was one of the nicest coaches that I interviewed. He was easily the most open coach. They also kind of laughed at a couple questions I had that were just Idaho Eastern centric, but I'm going to get to the point. Aaron Best told me that the reason Idaho has been competitive with Eastern over the last handful of games is Idaho's physical, and Idaho can run the ball well. And those are the types of teams that Eastern is more likely to have difficulty with, which in 2019, what you would have seen is Eastern, really they just killed all the less physical teams in the league, and then they looked pretty bad against Montana, didn't look great against Sacramento State. This year, now there's a chance Eastern's taken a developmental step there because they handled, I mean, the Montana game was real close, but all the reviews so far of Montana's defense has been it's incredibly physical, incredibly tough, and Eastern looked fine. But against Portland State, Alex, I'm going to say first half, not second half, it's a different monster. I thought Idaho's front seven in terms of getting to the quarterback, stuffing run was as good as I have seen Idaho since joining the Big Sky.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to game script, right? When you're down a lot, like we saw Eastern in 2019 in the Dome, caution kind of gets thrown to the wind, like we saw Portland State in the second half. Caution gets thrown to the wind from an offensive play calling perspective, and you just go out there and just throw the ball 80 times a game, right? A little exaggeration, but if you're staying within the score and the margin of score, things get kind of called a certain way. This Idaho team is a physical team. We were talking about this, Brian and I were, prior to getting on here. Guys, we have the second most yards per game in the Big Sky play this year in rushing the football. 234 yards we rush the ball. You know what that means? It means we have a physical offensive line. We like to get after it. We're averaging over 6 yards a rush. 6 yards a rush in Big Sky play, which is insane. We're averaging almost 5.5 yards a rush in all play throughout the year, and that's against two FBS teams. So what that shows me is we like to get after it and have a fun time. We've also seen our front seven on defense. I know Favai comes back this week. I've heard he's back, thank God. Nothing against Hogan or Soley. I love both those guys. Both those guys played their hearts out and played fantastically well. But there's a reason Favai starts at other linebacker opposite Trey. So Noah Ellis is finally looking to form. Chuck Akano is looking meaner than ever, right? I think we're finally seeing old Chuck back. We like to get after it up front. If we can create some pressure and make Berrier, have to make those throws out of the pocket like we saw in the spring in the Dome. He had to roll out of the pocket a lot, make throws on the run. And then that caused, maybe a slightly bad throw, receiver has to scramble, a drop, things like that. There's factors that go into that. That's why you're right. Idaho is a physical team. That's our identity. We match up well with that. And if Eastern has taken a round of the corner, Brian, maybe that they are more physical now. We've seen them play Montana, and that's about it. How physical is Eastern? If they're slightly more physical than they ever have been, then probably not good for the Vandals.
And we can also, Alex, we're going to do some producing in front of everyone really quick. We probably don't need to bounce back in terms of Eastern and just Idaho as separate sections. We can just keep talking about both teams. We're talking about the pass rush for Idaho, and really, since we already referenced Eric Berrier, to me that's one of the big things for Idaho is Eric Berrier, especially if you watch the Montana game. This is just a game that people, if you didn't see it, you really missed out. If you did see it, it was a fantastic game to watch. To beat Eastern, Eastern's going to put some points on the board, even against Montana, when Montana really did dominate about half of that game defensively. Eastern still finished barely under their average at the time of 600 yards per game. They finished with 584 or something like that against Montana. We know they're going to get yards. That's just going to happen. Idaho needs to be able to get pressure on Berrier to hope that he does have some of those misfires because he is accurate, but look, he's not perfect, obviously. And against a player that good, we need to increase the likelihood that he feels under pressure. And if he's under pressure and he's hitting every throw, no one is going to beat Eastern Washington. But we do know if he has time in the pocket and he's comfortable, Eric Berrier is winning. He's done that at Eastern the entire time he's been there. Idaho has been one of the couple successful teams because we have speed on the edge like Montana. For Berrier to beat us with his legs, it's a little more opportunistic. Whereas Berrier against Northern Colorado, he can really do whatever he wants. Eastern hangs 60 on Northern Colorado last week. They had 22 in the first quarter. That obviously is something Idaho needs to have not happen. And with our physicality, I think Idaho fans should expect there's a chance in this game being competitive. But it is really going to come down to, as phase one of, can we make Barrier have to make high degree of difficulty plays? Because if he's going to make them, no one's going to beat him. But we've seen in the Dome, he can overthrow guys. We've seen it in Cheney. I'm going to kind of throw the Cheney game last year out because the wind really mattered for both sides. But we have seen Idaho's pressure make life hard for Barrier, at least for parts of games. And that, to me, is our first key. Can we put Barrier in a position where he has to make the throws that only Eric Barrier can make? Because the more of those he has to make, the more likely it is that Idaho is going to be in that position we need to be, where we're not trying to claw back against the best offense in the nation.
We have to get after him, make him feel uncomfortable. I think I want to see a good bend don't break mentality, right? We know we're going to get beat at some point by Barrier. That's just like a given, right? But it's how often, how much you can minimize that. And then if we do let them into the red zone, let's hold them to field goals, right? Let's keep them out of the end zone. That's gonna be to me a big key to the game. I know if we're skipping ahead here, but like, how do we beat Eastern? It's stop them, make them kick field goals. That's honestly missed field goals, specifically over the left upright. As far as I know, it never went in. So it's call it how I see it. Looking at the weather real quick, Brian, it is supposed to be high 50s, low 60s, kick, a little cloudy, winds about 10 miles an hour in Cheney. So not terrible, but it could get a little breezy. Could probably see some gusts occasionally. We are playing football outdoors, folks. I know, right? It's crazy. I don't know why anyone would ever do that. I'd like to see if we get after him, make him make some bad throws, and then a little bend don't break. Don't give up the big play. Is Limu Jones still out at receiver for them?
That is a great question, Alex, and a great segue into one of the topics we do need to go over, which is our secondary matching up against Eastern's.
Yeah,
I know on our show in the fall preview, Colton Nuana said he thought Montana had the most talented receivers. I think the jury has to be in its Eastern.
Yeah, I Eastern with Boston and Limu Jones. I mean, those guys are fantastic. And you know who I would actually even put second if we're all healthy? The Idaho Vandals have a pretty good damn receiving core too. Torres trainers look like a baller more and more each day. There's a guy named Hayden Hatton still around, Cottrell, Haywood, Connor Whitney's our tight end. Not many other teams use their tight ends that much. So, but Eastern's receivers looking like a problem. And if Limu Jones is out, I never wish ill upon anyone. He already was ill. If he could just be out another week, I'm not going to complain, Brian. I'm not going to complain if he's out another week.
I'm doing some very, very quick research while I'm talking, but Tallulah Limu Jones right now, he actually leads the Big Sky in receiving yards per game. And good Lord.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, he's at 115 yards per game on the season. Only 2 touchdowns. He's kind of wild. He's got 34 receptions, only 2 touchdowns. But Eastern has 4 guys in the conference's top 12 in receiving yards.
Did you see who's number 2?
On the season, it's Bo Kelly. But in conference, are you in conference? I'm
looking at conference play. Therese Trainer.
Dude, okay, I just need to have conference-only stats up. And we know Therese Trainer looks absolutely as good as advertised. But Eastern has about three receivers that can absolutely beat you. You referenced Tallulah Limu Jones, who now Eastern also, their receivers, specifically Jones, they absolutely can drop passes. We were pretty big beneficiaries. Yeah, we were beneficiaries of that in the spring. But, oh, good God. In conference, Limu Jones averaging 200 yards per game. Trainers at 122.5.
Yeah, it's a big difference. Yeah, but still good to see Therese Trainer number 2. But we talk about big plays, right? Limu Jones is averaging literally 23 yards a catch. So every time he catches the ball, there's 2 first downs on average, right? So when I talk about limiting big plays, I specifically mean limiting the receivers from getting 25-yard catches.
Yeah, we also have just the names to pay attention to, guys, from Eastern Washington. Efton Chisholm, the third, number 7 receiver in conference play at 88.7 yards per game. We've talked on this show in Big Sky Big Takes before about Andrew Boston, who in 2019 was their top receiver. He's their number 3 receiver now, 79 yards per game. That's 3 guys who could be number 1 on a lot of teams. We've also seen now from rushing, not trying to jump too far, Alex, but Merritt for Eastern Washington. Why do I not have his first name? Dennis Merritt, averaging only 3.6 yards per carry, but has certainly looked better. It's kind of weird that he's down 3.6 because prior to Montana, Northern Colorado, he was looking radically improved. But he's a solid player as well. Eastern absolutely has weapons. They've also got the best guy in the league to capitalize on those weapons. So I guess Alex, before we transition to Idaho's weapons matching up against Eastern, what are the matchups I guess there that are in your mind key matchup, most concerning matchup? Take it whatever direction you want.
Yeah. If Limu Jones is out, right, we're talking about him averaging 23 yards a catch in Big Sky play. And the reason I'm going to use Big Sky numbers is because I think it's best to compare that when it comes to playing Idaho, because you can start including our other games that we're talking about, 2 Power 5 teams and a D2 team and Simon Fraser. It doesn't make as much sense to me. So, Limu Jones is averaging 23 yards a catch in conference play. Chisholm and Boston are both averaging around 13. So that's a big drop off, right? If their top guys out, we're talking about 10 yards a catch, 10 yards of difference per catch between their 1 and their 2 and 3. So if somehow Limu Jones is out, that helps our secondary, which is already kind of iffy to begin with, and I can confidently say they're probably like our weakest position group at this point, Brian. Like, we'd always question our O-line, but I think now I'm just like, wait a minute, I think our O-line is actually halfway decent. So I think that's the kind of matchup I want to see. If Limu Jones is out, let's keep Boston and Chisholm on lock. If Limu Jones is playing, let's try to limit as many big catches as possible. When it comes to the rush game, we saw Idaho hold Alonzo Gilliam to about 3.5 yards a carry versus UC Davis. And that's one of the more premier backs in the conference. Dennis Merritt has had a pretty good year, but he's only sitting there at 3.5 yards a rush in Big Sky play. If we do that, if we're holding him to that around his average, a little less, I feel pretty confident in stopping our run game. And when that's going to happen, though, Brian, then we're going to force Barrier to throw. And we're going to be seeing Barrier throw the ball probably 40 times on Saturday, if I had to guess. If our defense plays the run game well enough, like they have, then they're probably going to try to start really throwing the ball during the game, even if they're up or down, right? Like, Eastern's just going to probably try to throw the ball.
Yeah, so Limu Jones right now, the best information we have is, Alex, you're going to love the specificity here. He has a leg injury.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Pretty specific, not generic, not just like, who knows which. They didn't specify which leg, so that's even worse.
Yeah, exactly. He's out with a leg injury. This is kind of like Dylan McCaffrey earlier in the year. He was out with an upper body injury. So I guess, leg's a little more specific. Like, we already know which hemisphere in the body a leg is. It'd be good to know, I guess, the east-west question now.
We know it's an extremity. That narrows it down to 2 of 4, so we're halfway there.
And we'll say against Montana, one of the things I've talked about on the show before is Aaron Best, when he took over for Beau Baldwin, it was a pretty big deal for him to say point of emphasis is to get a little bit closer to 50-50 in terms of passing yards, rushing yards offensively. In a good sense for Eastern, Aaron Best has let go of that a bit. And I know you were there for 2019 Eastern, where they were pretty committed to establishing the run, which to me was, I was floored that was the route they went, because that's relatively speaking an Eastern weakness on Idaho's strength. Against Montana, they of course did run the ball, but they weren't force feeding against a front seven that was going to be tough on them. So I think you're right that we're probably going to see Barrier throw the ball a lot. Man, I'm. This is a game that really there's so much intrigue to. Because for Idaho, we saw Mike Beaudry go down at the end of the Portland State game. We have, in the same way that we have minimal news about Tallulah Limu Jones, we have pretty minimal news about Beaudry's status at this point, which, for our preview purposes, means we might be seeing Beaudry, or we might have a Boris 2.0 game which honestly, with how successful Borish has been in his part-time role, I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing for Idaho. Borish is among the in conference stats
top 3.
Yeah, at 6.3 yards per rush, and
nuts.
And something we just got to bring. There's 2 parts here that I want to talk about. Honestly, Borish has been our best big play guy on the ground. He's broken 2 gigantic touchdowns plus his 1 pass, 46-yard touchdown pass. So really, Borish has been a big play guy for us in both our FCS games.
Yeah.
It's wild to think of on the ground is our home run threat is on the ground, but it is. Borish has been great. And you have to keep in mind, because Paul's passed 1 time with Borish, we see it's a stacked box almost every time that he's out there, because teams are saying, look, Borish is out there. We know what he's doing. Well, this has been kind of like Montana State in 2019, where Travis Johnson, we knew was going to be a rush. Borish is averaging 6.3 yards per rush in conference against
Troy Anderson back in the day.
Yeah, well, it was both Troy Anderson and Travis Johnson. Montana, it was weird. Montana State rotated those 2, but did the exact same thing.
I'm having flashbacks in that. So
they did the exact same thing. Borish is averaging almost 6.5 yards per rush against the stack box. I heard that's pretty good.
Yeah, and not just Borish, but I mean, number 7 in the conference in yards per game is Elijah Cummings, one of our stable of running backs. So Idaho has 2 of the top 7 guys in the conference in rushing yards per game. And I mentioned this to Brian pre-show. Guys, we have rushed for over 1,000 yards already on the season as a team. Like we have rushed for like 1080 and thrown for like 1070. Like kind of you mentioned how Aaron Best wanted to be like 50-50. Well, Paul Petrino's accomplished that this year in terms of our yardage accumulation on the year. And if it works, if we do see a heavy dose of Borish right on Saturday, we saw him. We've all been clamoring for him to throw more this year. I think if he does play a majority of the snaps, Brian, I think we will see him throw more right on Saturday, because last year versus Eastern, it was a surprise Borish game, and he threw 12 times. I want to say, 6 for 12. Am I correct in that?
If you keep talking, I might be able to do some.
He's either like 5 for 10 or 6 for 12. Okay. Borish has gone in through this entire fall camp and all season practicing throwing still, right? And running plays. So I'm going to assume that if we do see a heavy dose of Borish on Saturday, we're going to see the equivalent of 12 passes or more actually out of him this weekend. I would actually lean more towards more, honestly, just to keep Eastern honest if it is Borish. If we do see the Borish-Beaudry split, I never thought I'd say 2 quarterbacks is working, but 2 quarterbacks is seeming to work so far since CJ went down. Both guys know their role. Both guys do their role pretty well. And we saw Beaudry, clutch it up there at the end of the game and make some great decisions against Portland State. So I have both confidence on whoever our quarterback is that we're going to be all right.
I got to fact check you. It wasn't 12. It wasn't 10.
Oh, man, was it 8?
The difference. It was 11.
Oh, shit.
5-11. Right. And for listeners, and hey, Eastern Washington fans, if you watch the spring game, I'm fine saying you guys should probably ignore what the arm talent from Borish looked like when the wind was 25 miles an hour, because Eric Berrier was sub 50% that game as well. So the wind was clearly impacting Eric Berrier. So if it impacts the best quarterback in the nation, like, we're allowed to say it impacted Borish, and we're not 100% clear on what him throwing a decent amount looks like. If he starts, we might get to see that.
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, because, again, similar to the no news on Jones, we have no news on Beaudry. So let's do real quick to close out keys to game, projections. But I'm fine either way. Like you said, Beaudry has been effective. He's been accurate, completed. The thing you brought up earlier in the season is if he's going to complete 2 out of 3 passes, then that's fine. That is what. Yeah, he's not Eric Berrier, but guess what? No one is. If we get solid showing out of the quarterback and that's what Beaudry can do, we're okay. That's going to help us out. I actually think understanding this game, it's kind of like Montana Eastern light, in that I think it's fair to say Idaho defensively is not the same as Montana. We have some strengths that are going to look similar to Montana, but we're not going to get to the quarterback the same level Montana is. Our secondary is not Montana's secondary. But I will say Montana's rush attack is not ours. Montana's averaging honestly close to like half of what we're averaging on the ground per rush in conference. Montana's at 3.6 yards per rush. We're at 6.2. And as a comparison, one of those games for Montana is Cal Poly, which is that's a D2 caliber game. So if you want to say Eastern did fine against Montana's run, I'm fine saying Eastern looks better, but Cal Poly should pump that number up, and it didn't. So that's how I'm kind of understanding this. Is it'll be a kind of different version of Idaho of Montana Eastern, except for Idaho, the key, as much as the key is going to be keeping pressure on Berryer, the key is going to be kind of like in the first Porsche game. We need to keep the ball out of their hands.
Yeah, time possession is going to be huge in my opinion here. No mistakes. I want to see a big special teams play. I will say, if you go look at, I would love for us to be in the spot to return a punt, because so far Mackay Stevenson has been pretty great at that, and those have shown to be some big plays. We saw that versus Portland State. We had a great punt return. So a big play on special teams is kind of my key to the game as well here. Be physical. If we show up Saturday morning just wanting to kick their ass, that's all you can ask for from that Idaho team, right? If they show up just wanting to be more physical than Eastern, they'll probably mean it's going to be a one score game if that happens, right? No, either way, I'm not saying who's going to win. I definitely say it's Eastern, but if the Idaho shows up want to kick ass, it's going to be a one score game. I think that's where we kind of compare to Montana, Brian, is that we like to play a certain physical style of football. It's not flashy. It's not get on the edge and do things, not line up in 5 wide or things like that, and do things like that. It's going to be more physical style of game. Limit mistakes. I'm going to say that every week, but it's so true. And we need to convert better in the red zone. We're only 13 of 19 in red zone scores this year on the season, 12 of those being touchdowns. It's not great. So we need to be only converting a 68% chance in the red zone. So if we get down there, we cannot squander a chance versus an Eastern team, because we'll probably live to regret it.
And the other keys I'm going to add, Idaho needs to start quick. Mm-hmm. We've just seen this about Idaho teams forever. We saw the steroids version against Portland State. We're set up to get a lead and to try to hold that lead. Idaho doesn't have a rich history of comeback wins. And a team like Eastern, if they're going to start fast, like Eastern starting fast can bury you in the first quarter.
Yeah, not like if we start fast, we just have to. It's either we have to jump out to a massive lead, or we have to keep it back and forth the whole time.
Exactly.
Right?
We need to not dig ourselves a hole. This
right.
is not a team that is set up to dig themselves out of a hole. Eastern, Eastern did that against Montana. Eastern was down 21-10 in the third quarter, and then they scored it was either the third or fourth. They scored 24 points. Idaho's team is just not designed to do that. We are getting big plays in a way we didn't in the spring and really much in 2019, which can help you come back. But we've just, look, with in the Petrino era, we've just seen when we win, we're winning at halftime if we're going to win that game. Or it's like a back and forth the whole time, right? Like we can't go down big. We can't go down by more than a touchdown at any point, pretty much, and expect to win a game. That's pretty much like, I would agree. And for some reason, Idaho loves to not play level their competition, but yeah, sometimes instead of like last week, I think is a great example of that. Instead of just instead of just putting the foot on the throat and just going for it, we just lay off and go into it, and then we're like, all right, let's compete again, right? Like that's just an Idaho thing to do, and it's pretty annoying, but I lived it for a few years. So yeah, we cannot be down big, or we can't be down more than 3 or 7, honestly, at any point. Yeah, 100% with you there. I'm also, last point I want to bring up is it's a road game, Alex. And this is a monkey fry that Idaho still has to prove it's going to get off its back. Mm-hmm. We have a road win in the Big Sky since returning. That's Northern Arizona, last game of 2019, and a game that was wild. Case Cookus and Mace Petrino combining for 120 points, something like that.
Gunslinger duel.
Yes.
Just what you thought I'd say when you described Mason and Cookus.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I have tried so hard to just make sure we're not even. I don't want to give our listeners PTSD that the dead horse is coming back, but and guys, it's not.
That's
we're
a
moving
fun
on.
game. That's just a fun game to acknowledge existed, in my opinion. Right? Like,
you're right, and like Mason gets like 40% of his yards in one game. Gets a all league, all conference vote.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's our one road win since returning to the Big Sky. We were competitive against Eastern in Cheney last season. It was 38-31 in Cheney. Now, asterisk, we controlled time of possession in that game pretty dang well, so Eastern scored their points fast.
Oh man, the end of that game still upsets me, Brian. I don't want to get into that.
I will, but last point for me before we jump into predictions. In the spring, Idaho had the best rushing defense in the, it was the abbreviated spring season. Not every team played, but at a per game, per yard, per rush basis, Idaho is best in the league. We're not best in the league right now, but we don't look terrible at all against the rush. So, fingers crossed that's going to matter in terms of increasing likelihood of third and long for Eastern. Because again, we just need Eric Berrier to have high degree of difficulty plays. If he's going to make them, we're done. But he needs to have as many of those as possible. And that's how Idaho puts itself in position to compete. Any other closing points you have before we go to score predictions?
Yeah, you talk about like the road ones. I was just looking up down here. We've gotten better on the road. We haven't got that monkey off our back yet, but during the spring we lost by 7 at Eastern, 2 at Idaho State, and 10 at NAU. It's gotten better to where it's not like Portland State 2019, right? So we're getting there. UC Davis, another close one. Our last 4 road games have all been 3 have been 7 points or less. 1 was 10. So it's not like UC Davis, Portland State 2018, 2019. We just got our ass kicked on the road. Eastern in 2018. We're getting there. It's coming to get a decent road win. I'm just not sure if it's going to be this game, Brian.
Well, also Eric Berrier is undefeated at home. And
yes,
now at some point that streak will come to an end. But honestly, based off Eastern's schedule, that streak might come to an end because he graduates.
Yeah, that's going to mean he either wins out this year because they're probably going to be a seeded team and probably be a 1 or 2 seed and have all home games come playoff time, and they're going to win a national title, or or he loses. They do have to play us. I'm a big situational guy, Brian. They do have us and then Weber State next weekend at home. Yeah. So
Eastern's in a murderer's row of their schedule right now.
They do have a bye sandwich in the middle though, so they're lucky there.
Yeah, they're murderer's
and they had
row.
one last week because they played out Northern Colorado. It's pretty much a bye.
That pretty much is a bye that Idaho doesn't get. But Eastern, I think, if they don't have the toughest schedule, they have one of the toughest schedules. They've already played Montana.
Them and us, probably.
Yeah, they've already played Montana. They play us, Weber State, bye week. Then these are all home games. So in Cheney for Idaho, in Cheney for Weber, in Cheney for Montana State. Then travel to UC Davis. Their last game of the season is the final edition of the Dam Cup at Portland State.
Wait,
but
it's the final edition of the Dam Cup? How did I not know this?
But I mean, yeah, well, because they're no longer protected rivals.
Protected. Oh,
yeah, because Montana upgraded, and they now have Portland State as one of their protected rivals. You remember that part, right? No, the silence for listeners is the devastation sinking back in.
So happy back in the Big Sky, Brian. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. But yeah, Eastern is in the midst of a murderer's row right now.
Yeah.
They just have a tough schedule. But hey, Bobby Hauck says, he wants his Montana Grizzlies to play the best so they can beat the best. Eastern gets to live that this year, and honestly, playing if you're minus the playoff teams that everyone thinks of as a playoff contender right now, if you're an Eastern fan, Idaho is a pretty tough game to have on your schedule out of the non-top 4, top 5 in the conference.
It's sticky, it's a weird. Yeah, they've struggled with us. Like I said, every game since that 2008, our first game back in 2018 has been a 1-score game. For some reason, Eastern just struggles with us. Their players know they struggle with us. Their coach knows they struggle with us. I could be like a weird mental block for them. If you're Idaho, what do you have to lose, right? You have nothing to lose. No one thinks you're going to win. So just go out there and play ball.
No, and we've already avoided the catastrophe that I was terrified about during our FBS run where, and we've told listeners, look, you just have to be mellow while we get killed in these FBS games because this is how we pay for the athletic department. But I was terrified that we were going to lose to Davis, which we did. And then if we lost to Portland State, we'd be looking at no win until around October 30th. But hey, we avoided it. We got to, not only did we get to win against Portland State, we got to see one of the best halves of Idaho football. Got to see one of the worst. But we also got to see one of the best halves of Idaho football we've seen in a long time. Which has
9-4 at home in the Big Sky. So it's what I'm going to keep going with. We're a good home team.
And you've brought this up too, Alex. Idaho has no bad losses at home.
Mm-mm. Montana 2018 is our worst loss, and they're 6-5.
Yeah, they're fringe playoff. They were not a bad team at all. We've had Sac State was an ugly loss, but
they were that was who they were seeded.
Oh yeah, that was a very good team. Very good Sac State team. Similar to this year, very good Sac State team, Chris.
At Chris Hammond.
Yeah, undefeated in Big Sky, guys. Sac State, no losses. So score predictions. We are without two of our favorite contributors, Dallas and Chris. I'm going to read their takes because they're not here, so I want to create suspense for hours. Dallas, do you have the outline up, Alex? Because if you don't, I just want to see what your reaction is to the Dallas game score prediction.
I do have it.
56-21 Eastern is the Dallas game score prediction.
You know, that's kind of what that's a versus simulator score. Actually, it's pretty close to that. So,
really?
Yeah, I did it last week. I don't have the subscription. I did free 3 days last week. Need to use a new email account this week and get one. But it was like before we played and before they played, it was like 51-17 Eastern, I think, on versus. Let's
drag this out a few more seconds before we get to Chris's. Do you know the gap in Sagarin rankings between Idaho and Eastern?
Oh man, it's like 100, isn't it?
Yeah,
I looked it up. Actually,
it's pretty dang close to 100.
Yeah.
Eastern Washington, they have the best Sagarin ranking in the Big Sky. They're at 98. Montana's the next closest at 99.
Mm-hmm.
Idaho is 177. So we're not quite doubled up. That'd be 196. But the comparison is being doubled up Sagarin ranking wise. So Sagarin would predict, an 80 to 90 point gap between rankings in the FBS would be the equivalent of an expected bloodbath. Mm-hmm. But Chris has a different take. He typed out an entire narrative about this, which I should have just put up in our outline. But I know our listeners love when we get to produce while they're listening or while they're watching, so enjoy it. Here's Chris. You were saying something, Alex?
I said it provides some ambiance.
Exactly, yeah, it provides ambiance. Yeah. What even provides more ambiance is when I accidentally cut you off when you're saying that too, and we have to repeat it. So Chris Hammond's take, I will take Eastern 30, Idaho 26. My points being Eastern has blown us out only once since 1995. In fact, Idaho has a winning record against Eastern since 95. All-time Idaho 16-8 versus Eastern. And since 1995, when we left the Big Sky prior to our return, Idaho went 6-5. Which, although in terms of Idaho being FBS, that's actually pretty bad, being 6-5 against Eastern. But since our return, we're dead even at 2-2. He says, I think our defense still is a nightmare matchup for them, but until we win on the road, either of these teams this rivalry, I'll be taking the home team, meaning Eastern hasn't won in the Dome either. I think just like the past 3 meetings, Idaho takes the lead and relinquishes it in the 4th. So we've got 2 people picking Eastern. You are not Dallas. Alex, what about you?
38-28 Eastern. I think we're going to score a little bit, Brian. But I think we're just going to get might be kind of like a similar game to the UC Davis game for us in the spring, right, where it's close, and then fourth quarter rolls around, and we just see a little separation.
How many field goals does Eastern miss?
1, and it's over the right upright this time.
Okay. You saw their kicker. Look, we typically don't joke about student athletes on here, but their kickers look terrible this year. He's not like Portland State bad.
That guy was bad.
Yeah. So, okay. But you said 38-28 Eastern?
Correct.
This is a tough score to pick.
Yeah.
I either want to pick a blowout Eastern win or a very close game.
Yes, I couldn't decipher.
Which is tough because
I can go either way.
Look, I'm good. I will say I think we're going to be able to run on Eastern better than Montana could because I think I think if you're a Vandal fan like me, you need to get over the spring PTSD. We weren't a very good running team in the spring. We look like a pretty good running team. We haven't played awful teams in conference, and we're looking good. But honestly, Eric Berrier looks like he's just been a different monster this year. 21 touchdowns already. That's just passing. That's not rushing. 21 touchdowns. Good Lord. And Eastern's handled the teams that you might call physical a little bit better than you would have expected. I'm not trying to pat UNLV on the back because they would not win the Big Sky. But Eastern won a low-scoring game there. Montana, Eastern obviously won, handled it. So I'm going to go Eastern. I hate to do this so much. 42-28 Eastern. And that is, once I type in my score, again, there's nothing better about the show than producing live. I said 42-28, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 42-28, good. That's what I want to do. Okay, that has been Around the Bar, presented by Hughes River. If you're looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, don't look past your backyard. Venture into the largest protected wilderness in the continental United States, located right here in the great state of Idaho. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River of No Return, the Salmon River Canyons, or the Selway. And you can even check out special trips like the one to see the Perseid meteor shower. Yeah, I was asking. Camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs, take in the history along the river, and fish some of the most remote stretches of river in the country. You just bring your clothes, let HRE handle the rest. Hughes River Expeditions has been Vandal owned and operated since 1976 and ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. What are you waiting for? Find out what it's like to grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem Strait. Call them now at 800-262-1882 or check them out at hughesRiver.com.
Before that was pretty good. You nailed the beaches part, so that's all that matters. I also want to shout out Nick Weber's take, Brian, if you can put that up on the screen real quick, his last comment. Oh, man, that was a game, a safety to start out. It was like a safety, a field goal for Idaho, and then Eastern had one touchdown, went for two, and there was a streaker during that game. That was the most eventful part of that game. I was there. I remember it. Joey Harrington, man.
What was the year that Idaho had we got shut out against Eastern? Was that the year they won the championship?
That was 2012. This is the year Akey got fired.
Okay. I know we're not we're done with that era of Idaho football, but that is maybe the single roughest Idaho game I can ever remember. I remember going that game thinking, look, Eastern's good, they're probably going to win, and then 0. We put up 0.
Yeah, that was the year Akey got fired. So
would never have imagined that FCS team shuts you out and you don't keep your job. How that happened? Watching the TV, Alex. We're going to go through picking the Big Sky. We're also going to use this for a quick Big Sky update on a handful of teams. Game 1 is on Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or 10 p.m. Mountaineer Time. Montana State at Weber State on ESPNU. Weber State kind of reeling right now, Alex.
This is like a make or break game for them, right? Like if they lose this, they're definitely not going to the playoffs. If they win this, they have to win the rest of their games to go to the playoffs. And this is for, a team that's been seeded recently, won multiple conference championships. I'm going Weber State. I think I'm not that high on Montana State to begin with. I just don't know how good they actually are. I'm going to take the better coach. I see Patrick saying, give me the Cats. Well, joke's on you, Patrick. They're both the Cats. We got the Bobcats versus the Wildcats. So I guess you're right here. Yeah, I see what you did there. I take the better coach. I mean, Jay Hill's a better coach than Brett Vegan. That's
we think it's early in Vegan's
career. Yeah, I guess that's what we think. I mean, Jay Hill has a track record. He's one of the best coaches in the subdivision. He's taken a team that was nothing into making him just a perennial winner. And all the Weber State Weekly guys are worried about every year him being poached by Utah for some weird reason they fire Kyle Whittingham, which they'll never fire Kyle Whittingham. So yeah, I'm just gonna go Weber State. I think they need it more. Hungry dog runs faster, Brian.
Montana State is really not possible to gauge in my mind because they have They have a schedule Idaho would kill for. Like if Idaho had played the Montana State schedule of Drake, who would be a not that great D2 team, San Diego. We already beat Portland State. Sorry, you say that one again?
So another great one.
Jesus Christ, yeah.
San Diego.
Then at Portland State versus Northern Colorado and versus Cal Poly. Idaho would be at worst 4-1 with that FCS.
My God,
FCS
like
schedule.
I would murder for that, Brian. I would die. I would die for that schedule.
And Montana State has really blown out every team except Portland State, where they only won by 13, which that's a comfortable win. It's more than we won by. I'm going to go with Montana State because I think – look, I didn't pick Weber to win the league in my preseason poll. I picked them 3. I should have picked them lower, but I didn't have faith in Eastern handling physical teams so far like they have. And Jay Hill, not a put down. He's a fantastic coach, but I think we can call him the quarterback whisperer at this point, right? I mean, listeners to our show will love to know that Jay Constantine actually looks like a pretty good quarterback at Rice now. Mm-hmm. And we've joked about him on this show, mostly because Weber State guys don't like him. But I don't know when we get to the point where offensively the problem is Jay Hill. It's not all these things Weber State lacks. It's they just don't score enough. Their defense has to be too good every week, every play to handle that margin of error, which is slim. So it's going to be a good game. But look, I think Montana State's better than UC Davis. And I think Montana State wins even in Weber.
All right.
Next game, much more interesting because of one guy on this show. We've already talked about Idaho. Sacramento State at Montana.
Montana didn't look great last weekend versus Dixie State, 31-14. And Dixie State has been a doormat for multiple Big Sky teams this year, including Weber State, if I recall. Oh, man. Let me just check one thing here.
I'll talk while you're checking something out.
Oh, I should know this. Yeah. Brian, I'm going to go on a limb. I'm going to go Sac State. I want to get a little frisky here. I do. I think Troy Taylor's a good coach. I think Montana's still trying to figure out who they are post Cam Humphrey. I know all the Grizz fan guys think that Cam Humphrey was the problem there, but clearly, like they thought he was a starter for the reason. I will never understand, like when people think, oh, the backup's better. Well, clearly, like CJ was our starter this year, Brian, right? And like all of us wanted CJ. You know what I mean? Like the coach names a starter for a reason. They know more than we do. They are professionals at their job. So Cam Humphrey was,
in theory,
yeah. Cam Humphrey, was their starter, and so I'm just gonna go Sac State. I want to get a little frisky here. Look ahead game for Montana coming to the Dome next week. Might just kind of look over Sac State here at home. They might go, we'll get this one and move on and take care of put in a reader, says Chris. I think I'm just gonna go Sac State. That's mainly for Chris. I have nothing to lose. I need to make some crazy comebacks picks anyway.
A couple items of news. Sacramento State is committed to a 2-quarterback system this year. So if anyone was following them, wondering like, hey, is Dunaway going to emerge or is O'Hara? No, like Troy Taylor was quoted. I made the mistake of reading a Sac State article this week because Elijah Dotson in 2019 was All Big Sky. He was preseason All Big Sky this year. He left the team for family reasons at Sacramento State. Was a great Big Sky running back. Hadn't really been playing much this year, so in terms of what Sac State has on the field, it doesn't change much for him. But hey, it's a loss. We wish guys didn't feel like they had to leave the team for family stuff. But read an article about that, and Troy Taylor has said, no, we're doing two quarterbacks. Jake Dunaway is more likely to pass. Asher O'Hara is their kind of boorish, where they let him throw, but he's also a runner, but he's not as good a runner as boorish. But, he's fine. I think he's been okay. We've talked about him not being great. But anyway, they're committed to 2 quarterbacks. That's kind of weird. Montana, real good question is how they're going to be offensively, because they haven't been good enough offensively. Sac State is one of the better teams on their schedule. They have like one of the easiest schedules in the league, where Sac State and Idaho are They're like number 3 and 4 tough Big Sky games. Other than that, they've already lost to Eastern. They have Montana State close season. I'm going to pick Montana, but I think it's going to be closer than people expect, especially Chris. And I think it's a real question how relaxed Montana gets with Chris Brown at quarterback, because against Dixie, they eventually pulled away, but Montana had 3 points against Dixie at half. Dixie would, right. I mean, the Big Sky comparison for Dixie, that's Cal Poly, right?
Yeah, or Southern Utah, maybe. I'd like to see Southern Utah versus Dixie. But I just think, if they can't quite figure it out and things get I could feel it could get a little tense there in Wa Grizz on Saturday if things aren't going too right and Sac State's putting some points up. So I could sense that happening. Doesn't seem like that unreasonable.
No, not at all. And that leads us to one of our 2 games of the week. Southern Utah travels to Flagstaff. Southern Utah at Northern Arizona. Both
trophy game.
I can't believe that. Jeez. And by the way, how is Southern Utah and Northern Colorado not a trophy game? But Chris and Dallas both picked NAU. They have faith. They have faith in Coach Chris Ball, in quarterback. I don't know why I can't remember the dude's name. It's like Rodriguez, I believe is his last name. I can look it up while you're talking about them. But Northern Arizona still riding high in Sagarin rankings. They only have 2 wins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm still going to go NAU at home. They're at home, so Utah's not that good. NAU's not that good, but I'm going to go with the team who's at home. So NAU.
RJ Martinez is the quarterback I can never remember from Northern Arizona. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. I want to pick Southern Utah because they've been in the spring. They were close every game. They've had
frisky.
They have the ability to look kind of frisky, but in all of those close games they've had, and some close games this season too, they only lost by 7 to Portland State. So Southern Utah, relative to that team, they're not terrible. I just don't think they know how to win because they keep losing close games.
They're allergic to it.
Yeah, they're not a terrible team talent wise, but they even against Northern Arizona in spring, they had 2 close games. They should have won both. They won none. And RJ Martinez looks like a much better quarterback than Keandre Woodley. I think they figured it out. By the way, in conference, RJ Martinez is the number 2 quarterback in the Big Sky. However, huge amount of that buttressed off killing Idaho State. So I'm taking NAU. That's a clean sweep. But that leads into our next game of the week. Idaho State travels to Portland State. And again, somehow Chris and Dallas have both picked Portland State. I don't know why.
I'm also going to go Portland State here, Brian. I just don't know. I think that Idaho State team last weekend is going to just think that they're good, right? It's going to be hey, yeah, we won a game. It's great. Like, we beat a team we shouldn't have beaten, and then they're going to just go faceplant in Hillsborough Stadium versus Deus Alexander and Barney Ball. So, plus Portland State's top 5. So, I mean, come on now. Well, that's the simple answer here.
Well, first, how do you not pick Idaho State on the road? I don't know when their last road win was. I'm not going to, and none of us are going to look it up, but Idaho State on the road.
Now you got me curious.
Well, hey, last time they were on the road, we saw them lose by 500 to Northern Arizona. Really quick comment on UC Davis losing at Idaho State. I paid attention to that game while I was running errands. And what happened is Hunter Rodriguez looked terrible coming back. UC Davis.
I wish he would have played versus us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If he would have had a 10 for 22 game against us, yeah, I would have been okay with that. UC Davis turned the ball over a lot. Idaho State did not. Weirdly, the team that did not turn the ball over a ton won. Tyler Vanderwall is still not back. Hunter Hayes looked better against UC Davis, but he still didn't look great. Until Vanderwall's back, I'm not going to touch Idaho State, so I'm picking Portland State as well.
Idaho State did have a road win in the spring, Brian, at Southern Utah.
Okay, well, and we just covered that, didn't we?
Can't remember.
So, we just covered the Southern Utah factor.
Jeez,
their games are close.
My God. Idaho State, all but their first game of the year was 5. Every game was 5 points or less. And they went 2-4. That's brutal. They literally beat Southern Utah by 2, lose to Eastern by 4, lose to Davis by 4, beat us by 2, lose to Weber by 5. Like,
well, Idaho State seemed frisky after the spring because of that. But to me, they've kind of been the number one fool's gold out of the spring.
Yeah,
like Southern Utah, they've looked similar. Like a lot of their games are close. Or like Southern Utah lost 50-21 against Eastern, but for almost first half, it was actually pretty close. And then Eastern killed them.
Yeah,
in the second half.
I was expecting more on Idaho State this year so far than what we've seen. So who knows? Maybe that win versus Davis will get some things going. But yeah, until Vanderwall's back, I can't trust him.
In our final game, Northern Colorado at UC Davis. Do you want to spend more time talking about the UC Davis conundrum, or do you want to talk about the thus far failed McCaffrey experiment?
The failed McCaffrey experiment is going just as about as well as the Urban Meyer experiment in Jacksonville. Man, UC Davis is a quarterback situation. Like, we were in the trailer on Saturday, and we're like, if they play, is it Thompson, whoever the runner is?
Keep talking, and I'll look it up.
UC Davis's runner quarterback, I think it was Tompkins. If they play him versus Idaho State, they probably win by 2 or 3 scores. There's Hastings, the backup, who they also, if they play him versus Idaho State, they probably win by 2 or 3 scores. I just don't know. I don't know who they're going to play quarterback. Like, I don't know if you're Dan Hawkins, what do you do? Do you go out there do you go, this is our guy, Hunter Rodriguez, who UC Davis fans already didn't want for the most part and think Hastings is going to be better than? Do you roll out there with Hastings, or do you go out Zach Boris style and just run the triple option the whole time? Triple option.
You got the name right as Trent Tompkins.
Yeah, that's what I thought. He looked pretty good versus us. Like, I'm still going to pick UC Davis. Northern Colorado's a dumpster fire. It was rolling down a hill slowly. So I still have to go with UC Davis here. Like, it would have to be Hunter Rodriguez type of game versus Idaho State for UC Davis for Northern Colorado to have a chance to win this game.
Yeah, Hunter Rodriguez is going to have to be terrible. And to me, you definitely go with Hunter Rodriguez. He's had a bad game. He's a solid guy. Trent Tompkins is probably better, honestly, in the way we're using Borish more, but he's not the guy so far.
No, he's a gadget guy.
Yeah, well, and Borish has been a fantastic runner. He needs the ball in his hand. But I think at this point, that's the dynamic you would project for Trent Tompkins as being most effective. And Hunter Rodriguez has had good games. So maybe you write off that Idaho State was first game back from a concussion. Holt Arena, he thought he stepped into an episode of Stranger Things like we all do when we see Holt Arena.
Saw too many seats.
Yeah, by the way, too many like carnival colored seats.
Well, that's been the thing. It's always been like that. But did you know they're going to rent that, Brian? Have you seen that?
They are?
They got a donation from ICCCU, or I just think they're throwing an extra C. ICCU is giving them some money. They're going to make all the seats brand new, and they're going to put a club area in the top one of their stands. So props to Idaho State for that. I'm about to look up their attendance on Saturday. 5,200 was the attendance in Pokey. Do we ever see an official attendance number on ours? Like, did that ever come out?
I'm sure it did, and someone who is not trying to look up Dylan McCaffrey's terrible stats would be great at finding it.
I just found ours.
What was it?
Guesses. All right, take a guess.
12.
Oh, Brian, that's a little too high.
Okay.
7.
For homecoming, we had 7?
7.
Really?
7.
That was it?
Yeah. Tough.
Man,
Welcome to the big sky.
Well, I mean, this is a separate topic that we might sometime talk about. This is why I thought this season was important for Idaho because, and you were honestly right when you talked earlier a while back that Idaho needed to turn the corner in the spring season when we played to build enthusiasm, and we didn't turn it quite enough. But I was just terrified that coronavirus plus having at some point Idaho just is going to need to win for a long time to build a big fan base back. And Portland State is not exactly a marquee game for homecoming.
I'll be interested to see what the attendance is next Saturday and how many of them are going to be Grizz fans.
Yeah, I don't care. I'll take that. I can tell you, I think the tickets should look okay because I have a colleague who I'm giving my tickets to because she said the tickets are kind of expensive now for the Grizz game.
Interesting.
Which makes it sound like at least a handful have been sold. But to shift to Northern Colorado and UC Davis, Northern Colorado looks just abominable. They scored over 40 against Houston Baptist. And since then, in 16 quarters, they have 51 total points. In particular, Dylan McCaffrey, he's averaging less yards per pass than Borish is running.
Dear
Honestly,
God.
Borish is averaging in conference play 6.3 yards per rush. Dylan McCaffrey does not have a single game this year where he's averaged 6.5 yards per pass. His best is 5.6 against Colorado, but in Big Sky play, he averaged 5 yards a pass against Northern Arizona. He threw 40 times and didn't break 200 yards.
Why can't we play Cal Poly and Northern Colorado this year, Brian? Why do we have to play Montana? Why do we have to play UC Davis instead? Like, I would love to just change out UC Davis for one of those teams. That would have seemed fair.
I know what you're saying. Like, we want Montana State Eastern, but look, we want a couple games to prep too.
I want some wins.
Yes.
Especially when we throw away 2 wins every year versus FBS teams, Power 5 teams. Earlier when you said Montana State schedule, I thought about it. I'm convinced that if Montana State had our schedule, they'd either be 2-3 or 3-2. Like, it's not like they would be like they would lose to Oregon State, they'd lose to Indiana. The UC Davis game would have been tricky, on the road. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, if we had Montana State schedule, we'd probably have a very similar record to them. If they had our schedule, they'd probably have a similar record to us. So I just had that thought.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think Montana State would probably, relative to how we saw UC Davis play against us, I'd probably say Montana State should win that game. But it would be competitive at the very least. And to finish talking about Northern Colorado, obviously I'm picking Davis. I think Idaho State was a fluke. Mm-hmm. And similar to, we always pick Idaho State on the road. Like, we're all picking Northern Colorado on the road every time they play.
Right.
Especially a team that is averaging in Big Sky Conference play sub 20. They haven't touched 20. I mean, they needed overtime to get to 17 against Northern Arizona.
Bring the storm, whatever they said on social media when they played Montana State. The storm's coming. Remember that? A storm is coming.
Yeah, and the storm is, I don't know, their locker room tears or something like that. But anyway, that's picking the Big Sky. We are well over an hour, which is what happens when you let the grade F producer run the show. And when we multiple times tell each other, hey, keep talking so I can look that up. I think it's time to close the bar, Alex.
I think so.
So kickoff, like we talked about for Idaho, 11:30, worst kickoff time in the world. But you know what? We're rolling off a win, which means we don't have a loss to talk about for a while, which makes a good day to be a Vandal. It's now time for the best band in all the land. Wait, no, it's not time for the best band in all the land. It's time for Colby Acuff.
Colby Acuff.
Colby Acuff to play us out. Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.
So raise your glass and have a drink with me. Here's to the Vandals in the crowd. All just out there living the dream. Right up one and only Moscow drinking tea.